Today's webinar is all about staffing. For those of you that may have been on previous ones, we did in the beginning of Q1 also have kind of half of our webinar associated with some improvements to staffing we had made at the time. We have a lot more coming, and we want to get as many of you across all of this as possible early on. For us at Monograph, hopefully you guys all feel that we're constantly trying to improve our product. I think overall that's a good thing. I think the one challenge with that is we have to make a lot of judgment calls on what we kind of proactively tell you about, what we tell you about. In some cases, we're just fixing small things that maybe one person's reported. And so we have to be a little bit cognizant of not constantly barraging everyone with all of the updates and changes we're making. So we're often making judgment calls on that. In this particular case, we know that staffing is a big part of everybody's workflow, everyone's weekly workflow. So we wanted to get ahead of that. So a lot of what you're going to be seeing are things that are, and Sam's going to talk to this in more detail, but things that are coming over the course of the next quarter. Hopefully, a lot of you know we try to plan every quarter. So here's a little bit of the agenda. I probably should have introduced myself at the beginning of this already, but I'm Ashish. I'm the Chief Product Officer here. So product management generally means the folks that are responsible for prioritizing and figuring out the problems we're trying to solve, and then helping to define those problems and working with our engineering teams to actually fix them. I represent both the product and design teams. And Sam, who is relatively new to the team, really excited to have him. I've worked with him before. He's awesome. He's going to be taking on this whole webinar and explaining to you all of that. So with that, I'm actually just going to hand it over to him, and I'll be here to chime in if needed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ashish. Yeah, really looking forward to sharing what we've been cooking up here at Monograph to improve the staffing experience and make it feel more of a native part of your everyday workflow in managing your firm. Before we jump in, I just want to say that this is all new stuff that we're going to be showing here. So what we're going to be showing is previews of what our team is actively developing today. So this is I wish I had a live demo for you, but a lot of this stuff is still a work in progress, and we'll be talking through the timelines of when it's going to be in your hands, and we'll try to hit that as close as possible. The other part is some of you may have met me in conversations about staffing. We've been researching this with countless firms to understand how best to embed this in your processes. And so without further ado, let's talk through what it is exactly that we've been working on. So to start things off, we're going to talk about staffing. Like, what is it, why we think you should use it, and some of the recommended kind of cadences and practices in your operations of your firm. So what is staffing? Let's get that started, and let's get that out of the way first. So staffing is all about building and sticking to a plan that allows you to hit your profitability targets for every project that you work on. It's made up of three key measurements. It's essentially a relationship between the time that your team has worked, or the logged time that's reflective of all the past work that's on your timesheets, your staffed hours, which is what this feature is all about managing in this formula between these three numbers. And this is about forecasting the remaining amount of hours that you need to complete a phase, rolling that up to a project, and then completing the project for your client. And all this, these two numbers are intended to stay within that maximum hours that you've set on your plan for your project. So that is essentially coming from the budget of the project. How much your client has said that you have in fee to work with to manage your to deliver the great improvements that y'all are working on. And so building this relationship and making sure that you are hitting this ideal goal is all about driving your firm's success. Now, I want to call out, all of these are listed as hours. But it's super, super important to remember that they're based on the very real project budgets set through the fees paid by your clients. The hours are converted into money via each team's role and rate that you set at the start of the project. So why is this important? So the foundation of every staffing plan is the phase budget. So that's the maximum hours that you convert through that roll rate. And that is the starting point for any staffing plan. That's the foundation. Everything's built on top of that, and it's super important to make sure that these are inputted when you kick off your projects. The next phase in the staffing workflows is to monitor the overall team workload, project timelines, and see how you're progressing towards those goals. Staffing provides you with a key point-in-time view of how your team is making progress towards those goals, seeing if they're over capacity, if they're over trend on their time logged, and if you need to pull back on future hours to make sure that you come in on budget, or accept that maybe you're gonna have to go a little bit over to ensure that you hit the quality standards that you expect. And then lastly, the tip of the structure, the most tactical, is the week by week staffing plans that you conduct with your team. And this is based on the facts on the ground. Everything changes constantly. We know that team members need to be shuffled around. Resources will free up or they'll become unavailable. Someone's sick. Someone needs to take some time off. There's a new project that's coming down the pipeline. So every week you should be truing up your plan and making it possible. And all of this relates to a recommended kind of cadence that we recommend when managing your firm on Monograph. So when inputting a new project, it's really important to make sure that every project is entered with your budget per phase, with team members allocated, with kind of a baseline that you expect to deliver your projects. And then as you roll on, you enter your project once, but there's a lot of other projects going on. There's a lot of different team members, a lot of phases. That's where this longer term staffing view allows you to get a bird's eye view to check in on capacity, to make sure if any projects need support to stay on track. And then last, every week, ideally as early as possible on Monday, you should gather your team, make sure everyone's capacity is set appropriately. Any changes in scope or demands of your project teams are aligned, and that everyone knows exactly what it is that they're supposed to be working on for the week, that your time is prioritized, and that you're going to hit your targets both for your clients, for your budget, and for your team to make sure that everything's in line. And to make this even more concrete, this drills up to like 3 key benefits that staffing allows you to do. First, staffing will allow you to help your team prioritize their time correctly. Each individual will have a certain amount of hours each week, and you can balance that load between others whenever possible. This practice is tough. We know that there's a lot to get done, and there's only so much time during a week. But employee satisfaction and I hate to say it, the elusiveness of work-life balance is really important to make sure that your team is as productive, as happy, as refreshed, and they're not burning out in delivering quality to your clients. At the same time, the clients are important. You need to provide a certainty of the deadlines that you've set, and staffing helps monitor the remaining time for project phases and resource that activity in order to hit those timelines by adding team members or flexing time or scaling back on certain areas where you can. And staffing helps you visualize all of that in one clean place. And all of this drills up to the end result. Your firm needs to deliver projects consistently on or under budget in order to ensure that your business is sustainable. Just throwing more hours at a single project can result in just written off hours, missed opportunities in other projects. Your team will burn out. And at the end of the day, your firm's success is what we here at Monograph want to make sure that you have in your ability to do. And staffing is one of the key tools in your arsenal to make that a reality. That being said, we do know that staffing has a lot of room for improvement, and we're really excited to share with you what it is that we have on the docket for delivery in the next few weeks and months. The first features that we want to talk through are, as I mentioned, the ones that are in active development. So ideally, we'd use this time for a demo, but we're going to use this time to basically talk through these upcoming changes So make sure that you feel as prepared and comfortable with them as possible. And just want to call out, though, that the high-level steps in staffing are not changing. All of the pieces that I've mentioned around recommended timelines, the activities, and the actions that staffing allows you to do are going to remain consistent. But what will be updating is the usability of these functions. When it's easy to use, you will do it more often. You'll feel more comfortable with it. And that's really our aim as well. So what is it that's going to be included in these new workflows? We have 6 key deliverables to make this a more usable part of your operations. And we're going to walk through them one by one to make sure that you feel prepared for when these get released. So the first available improvement is going to be a time range filter. And this is actually already launched and available today. So if you go into your staffing plan, you will see that there's a time range filter at the top right corner of availability. And these time range filters allow you to clean up your view. When you drill down into a month, we'll remove irrelevant future phases. So let's say you have a phase that begins in 6 weeks that Alberta is assigned to. That won't be visible when you're looking at the month plan. Similarly, if you have a project in 6 months, not visible in the 3-month plan. And all of this allows you to be more focused on the objects that you need to on the projects that you need to manage at any given time, while also being able to keep that future view in line so that you can prepare for any upcoming changes in the future, such as new team members, new projects on the horizon, potentially changes to plans in flight. Now we're going to talk about some of the upcoming features. So we're going to clean up some of the data that we display in the staffing visuals. So as I mentioned earlier, staffing is made up of 3 key data points, and the relationship between these allows you to better understand what you need to do to make sure your project comes in on time and on budget. So the relationship between the log time, the staff time that you can manage in this experience, over the planned amount that you have at your disposal, key to understand. So we've revamped the visuals so that you can clearly understand this relationship and make it and take more clear action. We also know that sometimes you need to drill down into specific people. We are going to be improving the people filter to allow you to filter not only on individuals, but also on project teams. So with this, you'll be able to select a project and will instantly select all of the team members that are assigned to that project. You can combine these and edit the lists to more quickly select the groups that you want to manage at a single time. And we're also going to be adding a sort by first name to change the list order quickly. We have heard that ordering by last name, which is what's currently, is not as effective. And so we've taken that to heart and have also updated the display of names as well. Additionally, rebalancing is a great tool that we have on an individual phase and person level. Rebalancing hours allows you to quickly bring your staffed hours in line with the remaining hours available in your budget so that you can make sure that you are on track for delivery on trend. So as an example, if I'm 2 weeks through a 4-week phase, and I was planned to work for 20 hours in my budget, and I've already logged 12, I'm actually over. I'm now trending that if I keep at this current pace, I'm gonna end up with, I believe, what is that math? 4 hours over budget. So by clicking rebalance, it'll instantly adjust the remaining weeks down to balance it to bring it into 4 hours over the remaining weeks rather than the original plan of 5 hours. So this is great. It's a great tool. We highly recommend you use it if you haven't already. However, you got a lot going on, and we know this. Most firms have more than a single person working on a single phase. And so to speed up the process of balancing out all active projects, we will add the ability for you to rebalance hours of all active phases during the time range selection. And we balance this with our improved people filter, so you can drill down into a group of individuals to make sure that you're targeting this rebalancing process. We also are going to make overhead editable directly within the staffing view. Overhead will no longer be necessary to be added on individual timesheets. Now, to add overhead, all you have to do is click on the Assign button, which will be under every single user's name, and you'll be able to add an overhead category and set it to be a recurring a part of their staffing plan. In this example that you see on the screen, Alberta has been assigned the overhead admin category for the next 4 weeks. And once saved, I can now add hours over the next 4 weeks to make sure that her plan reflects all non-billable aspects of her work. There's one other factor to this change that is not shown, which is that we plan with this to stop allowing team members to file timesheets for future weeks. This is really important. I want to reiterate that timesheets are there to record time that has been completed, time that has passed, time that has been worked on. By adding overhead tracking to staffing, we have removed one of the key blockers to prevent folks from doing this. And we do encourage, for those of you that use our time off feature, you'll know that we already have tools available for future timesheets through that feature. And that'll be accessible for you there. But with this, you'll be able to plan and allow yourself to visualize all of the non-billable work directly within staffing, listed out by the individual overhead categories. We also know that teams change constantly. To quote one of our firms who we interviewed about this process, right now they have to go into the project planner and they called it the basement. It's like going, into like the cellar where you keep, all your, work on. You have to go to the boiler and you have to make minute adjustments to clean up your projects. Now we're bringing that to the forefront. Now it's like having your thermostat in your room, and you can now assign a phase directly rather than trying to have to go downstairs into the crowded basement to revisit some original plans. So with this visual, Alberta needs to pitch in to help the SD phase of the Main Street project. So I select assign under her name, and rather than overhead, I select phase, select the project phase. I pick the role and the rate to make sure that we have her either with her default, which will be automatically selected, or a potential alternative. And with that, click save, and that will be added to her plan for management in the future. During this delivery, however, I do want to call out, you will not be able to set budgeted hours for her in the plan at this stage. So extra attention will be needed to make sure that you don't go over budget on the entire phase now that you've added Alberta to a phase that may have already been at 100% capacity. The good news is that we have plans to address this in our final deliverable that we're going to cover in this webinar. So stay tuned and we'll explain the way to manage that in the future. And so with all that being said, what to expect when? These new workflows, we are, like I said, in active development on, and we're racing towards the finish line and making sure that we have passed all the quality checks that we expect for a new delivery. And we anticipate this to be launched in mid-May. We know that staffing is a very important workflow for you. So I do want to pause and just say, we know that this is Monday is a very important day, and we will never ship on a Monday for staffing features. So good news there. And we'll definitely be reaching out and just letting you know that this is when this is coming. As you can see, though, there are future phases. We did learn from conversations that most regular staffing occurs on a weekly basis with all of the team. So we know that it's really important to make sure we cleanly display staffing data at this level of detail and that this information is shareable with the entire team. So we're adding another time range filter. We are going to be taking all the basic functionality of the longer term staffing view. So all the assign work, these filters, and we're going to be creating a new view that will mirror a lot of the same consistent views that you see with the current week, but we're going to be replacing it with this visual. Very minimal changes here. The edit interaction is largely the same. You click on the square, adjust the name, the time, excuse me. And we're keeping the visual language consistent though now by rather than using a circle, which we use for fixed numbers, to the rectangle, which indicates an input that you can now manage. You'll have the ability to filter by category. We know a lot of you use categories to cluster projects by project managers, and that will be available here. And projects that are over budget, as you see with the Edgware Road project with the exclamation mark, that is a project that's potentially over budget, and you can access that and rebalance it directly here. Or you can make use of our multi-person rebalance to do it more universally to bring everything up to par. And then as always, we'll list off overhead and time off, and you can assign those directly within this experience. And your team members without staffing management will still be able to follow along in a view-only version of this page. And this will allow them to visualize what work is priority for them and what is also on their colleagues' deck as well to manage. There will be a change that is unique to the weekly phase. As mentioned, the weekly view is really intended for you to stay on top of those minor changes that adjust on a week-to-week basis. And we've heard consistently that just because a phase's timeline is what it is, doesn't mean that necessarily correlates with work. Clients can come back, they can ask for revisions on an already completed phase, or let's say maybe a team member is freeing up and you want to start on another phase earlier just to make sure you get ahead of the ball. So we want to make sure that the weekly staffing is flexible and can reflect your changing plans in the context of where you are. So how it works is when you click the Assign Phase button, in the weekly view, you can search across all recently ended phases, so those that ended in the last month, to extend the end date to this week. And you can also bring forward the start of future phases to the current week as well. And this will allow you to staff time against them and make sure that you are reflecting the reality of the work that your team is doing within your staffing plan for better information management. So as I mentioned, we are making great progress on this feature as well. We expect this to come shortly after the new workflows, and this will include all the features that you see on the screen that we've discussed so far. Some specifics may change, but we're really excited to get this in your hands. And last, but certainly not least, is frankly one of the ones that I'm most excited about. All the enhancements have really fallen under the umbrella of making sure that your team is focusing on the right work every week. We've even relabeled the tab to say it's the people staffing plan, and we call it that because the primary row in each one is the person. However, we know that project managers, principals, partners, and really anyone who's responsible for making sure that your firm is delivering projects on time and on budget, it's important to view this at the project level. And to reorient this, we are going to be delivering a brand new visualization of staffing in our final deliverable. First change that's coming with the launch of this project view is actually to change the staffing permissions. Given not every hour is identical, and it's going to be important to understand how a given hour's change reflects the overall budget of a project. So we're going to be streamlining permissions to ensure that everyone with the ability to manage staffing can visualize it at the project level. And let's see what it looks like. So as you can see, we've adjusted the toggles up here so that we have the people tab, which covers all of the features that we've discussed so far. And then we have the projects view. This doesn't replace any existing feature. You'll still see the projects section of the app will be unchanged, but in the projects view, we will visualize those projects by their staffing. So we'll prioritize projects that have phases that are over budget, trending over budget, maybe are missing data, to encourage you to intervene, bring them back on track, or minimize the impact of maybe going over budget. Some things have may have logged time and you can't take it back. So we want to make sure that you can at the very least minimize the impact of those overages. Clicking into a project will show you those details. Each phase will be listed separately, and you can click to drill down to view the assigned team members. As you can see, we borrow similar visual language from the people view to indicate red that a phase needs attention, and purple to indicate that the phase is positive. The numbers above indicate the total amount of budget that each week is consuming based on the hours that you've staffed and the rates that each individual has been assigned for their role. We will clearly identify what it is that each state is in, and we'll provide you with information on what you can do to better manage it. As I mentioned, sometimes you just logged too many hours and you can't really do too much to bring it back in line. But other cases, you can take advantage of our rebalance function to correct a trending over budget project before it gets too out of hand. And this is why it's super important to make sure that you regularly check your staffing plan. And each team member will also have the same visualization. You will notice that we do list the hours here. And again, this is because the hours vary in value by team members. Your fees are made up of all of these different billable rates that you invoice to your clients. And you can rebalance both individually and on the entire phase, similar to our multi-user rebalance functionality. We'll also have additional edit functionality so your project can stay within, reflect your accurate timelines as well. This has been on our wish list, as well as many of yours, to have a more dynamic edit experience for the timelines of your phases. And we took that to heart. Our designers really went to the workshop and figured out ways to make that a reality in this experience. So now you can drag and drop when you hover over any phase. If the phase is linked, you'll have a single button to unlink it so that you're not affecting future phases. And by extending it, we won't fill in new cells. This is very similar to a manual edit in the phase planner. But so we're mirroring that experience today. But now you don't need to go back into Planner to make these changes. And that's really one of our key focuses. We want to minimize a lot of the clicks that you have at your disposal to do the things you need to do within staffing. Even more impactful than updating your phase schedules, we also wanted to bring in the planning functionality from Planner to staffing. Things change. As I mentioned, you can bring team members in, you might take team members out. We wanted to reflect that edit experience within staffing as well. So within the project staffing view, when you click edit on your team, you will see a simplified view of your planner experience, along with how many hours each team member has logged. And you can make adjustments to, for example, when you add a new team member, you can take time away from someone else's maximum hours that they should be working, assign it to your new team member, and bring your hours allocated, the max hours allocated, back into line for your plan and rebalance and get going, confident that your project is on track. You can always also delete users from team members from a project plan. However, we do require that they haven't logged time from this experience due to the interactions with timesheets. And with this change, we will update the existing assigned phase experience. We won't block you from adding a new team member to the phase in the people view. However, we will encourage you from here to go into your project plan and manage your allocations so that you have a target to aim against when you assign hours in your staffing plan for an individual. And this final set of deliverables, we are aiming to deliver it in the month of June. Because it's a bit further out, I don't have as firm of a timeline on it. However, we will be letting you know when we get close to the date. Very excited to share this, and we really hope this improves your experience with Monograph Staffing. And we are really excited to get these in your hands and get your feedback and continue to evolve it to make sure that Monograph provides all of the tools you need to keep your projects on budget, your team not overworked, and your projects coming in on budget. With that, I'm going to take a quick pause for Q&A.
Awesome, Sam.
All right, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Eileen going to jump in.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. I will moderate. Thank you for everyone that's been sending in questions. I've been trying to get ahead of everything and being able to have a good list of questions for Ashish and Sam. I know that before we jump into Q&A, I think there's one more thing that we wanted to share with everyone for our upcoming webinar. And it might be the next slide.
Do you have an
It looks like this didn't, we're missing an update here. I think it's
it looks like we got too excited about the actual content and didn't add that one slide, but that is okay. No worries, because technology is here to save us. So we have been doing these monthly webinars, and so far we've covered staffing, we've covered QBO, we've covered updates coming to staffing. So we'd love for you to help us decide what we should do for our June webinar. So I'm going to launch a poll, and I'll give everyone like a minute or so. It should be very quick. Let me launch that now. And then if you can vote, we have some ideas. Either, I know we've had a lot of new features, so we can do more new features. We can talk about invoicing, or I know there were a lot of questions about how to best set up projects that has a ties to staffing. So that would be another topic for us as well. I see those votes coming in. Okay, close to 200 people, and we have about 130 votes. I'm going to let it roll a little bit till we get closer to 200. Okay, I think we're at 150. I'm guessing there's probably some folks that are either joining from their office or even from our Monograph team. So I'll go ahead and end it now. But thank you so much for voting. Very helpful for us to get your feedback on the best content to produce. All right. So with that, I'll move us over into our Q&A section. I was trying to group these questions for Sam and Ashish in a way that we kind of walk through like setup, timesheets, different things. Because some of the questions that were submitted definitely were, I think everyone's thinking similar things. So the first one, either for Ashish or Sam, I think there were several questions where they were curious to hear what is your advice or like the best practice for when you need to update either a phase or someone's schedule and like the project is like underway. Should you be doing that in the planner? Should you be doing that in staffing? Where's the best place to do that?
So to make sure I'm understanding the question, this is how to update the maximum amount of hours that an individual should be working on a given project, on a phase. Yeah, that's great. So with these changes, the best place to update them in the future will be within your project staffing view. For now, until this is released, the best place to do that is still in Planner. We do recommend keeping your amount allocated within line for your budget. That's the best way to make sure you're staying on track for your project phase, and then ultimately the project. So Planner for now, and then in the future, when we have the project view available, this will be accessible and editable, managed from the project view.
Thank you, Sam. Another question, this came from Katie. Her question was, is there a way to turn off auto-populate when it comes to staffing?
So for auto-populate, when you create a project phase, we take the initial project plan and we will essentially do an instant rebalance for the phase for all those hours across the initial, it's like the initial draft, if you will. And were you to adhere to that draft 100%, you would be, within your budget and within, the demands of your organization would be successful with that. However, we know that reality is not a straight line of all, evenly divided hours out across every week. So we can't turn off auto-populate. However, like that auto balance, I guess it's not a rebalance if you're doing it for the first time. We can't turn it off, but we do know it's the first draft. And so you can go in there, you can manage it. In future times, when you click rebalance, you can avoid overwriting any of those edits directly through the existing rebalance function by selecting don't adjust manually edited times. Future edits for the project plan in the project planner will not adjust those plans. So only the initial balance is when that auto-populate will happen. With this change that you see on the screen with the project view, we will prompt you if you'd like to rebalance after making adjustments, but you don't have to. So changes to your plan don't have to take place after you edit, but the initial draft is going to always be filled in. And that's just just something, the guideline for you to work against. You could always edit it afterwards.
Thank you. I have a question here from Madison, one of our first questions asked, which is, will I be able to add time to a staff schedule for a project's phase that is complete according to the project schedule?
So this is project phases that are complete. So no, one of the reasons why is that we really strongly encourage you, these budgets that you see here, are really about managing the ongoing work that is in progress. It doesn't necessarily help you to change it after the work's been done. If the phase is still in progress, I would recommend just not marking it as complete yet. If you're extending the timeline using some of the new tools, then it's fair game to go ahead and continue to manage the hours to shoot for that target that you're trying to hit. However, once the project phase is complete, what you did was what you did. And however it worked with what you initially set out to do is really the results that you're getting. And we don't want you to edit it to not reflect the reality. We want it to be as close to reality as possible.
One
Thank
point of
you.
clarification, Sam. One thing we are doing to make it a little easier is in the weekly, Sam referenced this. You will be able to add basically add a person or add a phase, I should say, that's up to 4 weeks, like if it's been less than 4 weeks since it's ended, which will make it a little bit easier. But as Sam said, we will extend the timeline. Monograph's whole thing is we need information as accurate as possible. So if you're working on it, then the timeline is extended. So it will extend the timeline, but we will make it a little easier so you don't have to go into Planner, change the timeline, come back, and then add it. But you will need, we will effectively require you to change the timeline in order to add hours to it.
So,
Great
all
point of
right.
clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. There was another question. There was a little bit of a cloud around this. There were a few folks that were asking, I think, something similar, and I hope that I captured it the best way possible. But the question is really, is there a way that we can better control what projects show up week over week? I think there was a similar question, which was, we used to be able to copy last week's timesheets. And Ashish, I think you remember this from earlier in the year as a way of generating staffing.
Yeah, Sam, if you don't mind, I can take this.
Please.
So we removed that feature for like a pretty strategic reason. Hopefully this won't sound too critical, but the reality is that was encouraging a behavior where you just work on whatever you did last week and just keep doing that. And that's actually like the whole purpose of Monograph is for us to be thinking and planning ahead and helping you guys do that. And so we just didn't feel like that was actually that it was kind of anti the pattern that we're trying to drive. But I understand that, all of this, it's all like in theory, everything's great. And then in practice, things are harder. So what we're trying to do with the rebalancing, with the automatic, the question earlier about auto-populating hours and things like that is what we're trying to do is as long as you guys can ensure that your timelines are right, your budget is right, do a lot of that up front. We're trying to make it easier and easier that as things change, like, okay, this phase is longer. Now you can extend the timeline. And as Sam said, soon you'll just be able to drag that and say, oh, we're extending a week longer. All of this stuff will still happen. So for example, in timesheets, now you may have noticed a relatively recent change where by default, we're just showing the rows where you have allocated in staff time. I think there was another Q&A question about that. So what we're trying to do is make it a lot easier for you and your team to be efficient. And if focus your energy on just making sure that the plan and the allocated time in staffing reflects reality. And if you do that, then the other pieces of the app will just work better for you. But yeah, I mean, and then some of the things that we just referenced, for example, with weekly, where we'll allow you to search for things that maybe just recently ended, things like that will make it a little bit easier. But I will say that in general, Monograph is going to work better for you if you put the kind of energy into the staff plan. The timelines are really critically important, actually, and the budget is all there. Then hopefully these little tweaks will be easier. And I do understand that this is change, and for a lot of your teams, this might be a pretty significant change, but we do believe that once you put in this work to do it initially, like these adjustments will make overall, it will make you a lot more efficient, make your team a lot more efficient.
And I do want to address the first part of the question, which was about whether or not you can hide projects. Essentially, if a project has staffed hours against it, we really don't want you to hide it. It's part of the plan. It's part of what you're working on. That being said, we haven't necessarily planned for hiding 0-hour projects that are maybe you haven't staffed hours against it for a given week for a given individual. This current release for the weekly will not hide those. However, that's a great feature request, and we can definitely take that as a follow-up item for us to deliver on that in the future. And if there's any other types of ways in which you'd like to hide non-active, non-staffed hour projects, we'd love to hear it. So please let us know through your account team and support.
Awesome, Nikki. I've been seeing a lot of feature requests coming through the Q&A, and that's great because we are able to export all this information at the end of the webinar. Ashish sees it, Sam sees it, and we share it back with the team. I have a few more questions here as well. This is a workflow one, and I think it is a feature request, but perhaps there's a good practice for it. So the question is there a feature that already exists or is in the works that allows duplicating staffing for a team member into a future week instead of manually having to do it like every single week? So it's almost like duplicating that same allocation out a certain number of weeks. I guess, I mean, you can drag and drop. That's one way to do it. Is that always the best way?
Yeah, that maybe.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Sam. I'm only speaking to this because we talked about it in the last webinar. It may not be as discoverable, or you may not realize that it exists, but we do have a copy, like in the availability view currently, similar to Excel. If you hover over a cell on the right, you can drag it over, and that will copy whatever you have in that cell all the way across. It's kind of a fun little feature that maybe isn't as discoverable, but I think is really helpful. So that's the primary way that I would suggest. Sam, I don't know if you had another suggestion.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. That's how you can copy. The other piece to mention, just similar to what Ashish mentioned in the previous question around just continuing to do what you did in the prior week. As discussed, we want to make this as possible to reflect, new facts on the ground and not just repeating what you did the prior week. So if you find yourself doing that a lot, make sure that it's not being invested in time that could be spent more productively elsewhere before just repeating what you did in the past. But that happens, and so that's why we have the drag and drop function within the longer term timeframes.
I have I think this is a question for Ashish. This is a monograph method type question. And so it is, are people able to log hours over the max amount allocated to them? Would notifications be sent to the project manager for approval?
Yes, they are allowed to, for sure. Notifications are not currently set, but I think that's a great idea. And I think one that we will definitely take to heart. I think, yeah, part of what we're trying to do is like, once we instill all this, then find different ways to reinforce that. But yes, and you will notice we use the term max because I think those of you that have been around for a while probably know we've had a lot of confusion. Like, what is planned hours? What are these hours? Why are these hours? Why do I change stuff in Planner in it? And so we're trying to continue to refine our language here to make it as clear as possible. The way that I think about it is these are as long as you are below this number, you're going to be profitable. And if you go over, you're going to start cutting into your profitability. So yes, I think that's a great idea to allow or to notify people. For now, anyone can see as soon as they're trending over using all the kind of new hopefully the clear displays as well here. So if you come to this regularly, you would notice it, but I think notifications is a great idea.
Thank you. And the reason I call that a monograph method is we get that question often. Why do you allow my team members or my employees to log hours even if it's beyond their allocation? Part of this is we want to make sure that everything is captured, right? And so that, if we say, hey, we only allow you to log 10 hours, but you actually work 20 hours, then you have no visibility in what could be an area of improvement. It could be an area to revisit, whether internally or externally. So we try to keep the fidelity of your hours as accurate as possible to what occurred, even though we know sometimes that might make for someone work too many hours on something that they shouldn't have.
Yeah, that is a great point, Eileen. Like, we want people to, we want all the stuff in Monograph, especially the logging and all that, to reflect reality. And then, if you can only bill someone a certain amount or what have you, we have other ways to handle that in invoicing. But like, the number one thing we will tell you is like, try to do the real thing here. Don't lie to us, because if you lie to us, you're lying to yourself, right? Like, so like, don't do that. as much as possible. And we'll try to help you if you need better ways to communicate this stuff to your clients.
Thank you. This one is definitely, I know these are feature requests, but I'm going to ask live anyway because there are several folks that have asked about it. And so have you considered a feature that would better link planning, like staffing, to project milestones? And have you also considered a calendar view for seeing milestones and tasks with staffing?
Yeah, so the short answer is probably that we will need to invest more in milestones and tasks. And I'll just be completely candid with everyone here. Some of the older areas of our app that have not had as much love recently as we'd like. I hopefully I'm not belaboring myself by repeating this for 1,000th time, but my principles are very much about focusing on certain areas and doing them really, really well. So we've focused a lot on accounting and the QBO flows recently and staffing as well. So we just want to get those things working really, really well, and then we'll move on to other areas. So that those are areas that haven't had that love recently and probably need that. In terms of a calendar view, I'd love to maybe learn a little bit more. I mean, we do have things like the Gantt chart. Well, we refer to it as the Gantt chart, but the project's overview page, for example, where you can kind of see a timeline and see where the milestones are. Those reflect, they don't, I guess maybe the question is, some of those progress bars and things like that don't reflect staffing data, and I think that's fair. So yeah, great questions. Short answer is we haven't done it yet, but I am positive that we will kind of relook at milestones and tasks sometime in the near future.
I think this is likely a question for Sam. This is a little bit of functionality between staffing and timesheets. The question is, will a staff member's timesheet automatically be set up with project phases based on their assigned hours and staffing?
Yes. So as a staffing plan is built out, that is the indication to the timesheet section to know what are the suggested projects for the team member to record time to. So I'm just actually going to go back real quickly to one of our earlier slides to talk through the experience here. So in this case, if, for example, I am in the week of April 15th and I'm Alberta, I'm going to see a pre-filled slot for Octavia Street because I'm expected to be working 8 hours over the course of that week on that project. However, for the project right below it, the project phase below it, the 12 Palm Springs Drive, there's no time there. So I will not fill it out. So any project phase with an hour attached to it in your staffing plan will pre-fill in your timesheets for time logging. So as discussed, your staffing plan goes into your time log, and all of that should be less than your planned hours overall for your budget.
Thank you. All right, and I think I know we're getting close to time. I think this will be a good one to perhaps end on. There's a question from Teresa, which is my middle name. Great name, by the way. Can you remind me what the benefits are of marking a phase as complete when it relates to also staffing and timesheets?
I can take this one. Marking a phase as complete essentially tells us that you're no longer working on that project. What it will do is it will hide it from a lot of the drop-down lists within timesheets, within staffing, and allow you to clean up essentially your view. So if, for example, you finish a phase or a project early, you can mark it as complete, close it out, and it'll make it so that it's not as if you have 100 phases going on, well, removing any one of those will make it a lot cleaner to view your experience. That being said, it's not critical. If you're sticking to your timelines that you set up within your phase and within your project, that'll happen organically as time moves on. So we do look at the dates when we also consider when something is over.
Awesome. All right, well, I think we can close it out here. Thank you for everyone that submitted questions. And also there's a ton of feature requests in here. I'll be sharing that with Ashish, with Sam. Gives us lots of things to think about for ways that we can continue to improve staffing. And also thank you for your input on helping us decide what our next topic should be. I didn't get to see the final numbers. They were all three of them were very close. So I think we'll have to make a call and we will continue to update you on the next webinar. So we'll do this sometime in June. We're trying to do this once a month. You'll see the banner in the app with a registration link. It'll probably also get mentioned in the newsletter with a link to register as well. And then anyone who is registered for this webinar, if you're registered and you're here now, you will get the recording. And like Ashish said, it usually takes us a couple of days to download it, edit it, make it nice and digestible for you. And with that said, thank
Thanks,
you both
everyone.
to Sam and Ashish. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.